We've got an amazing white hat hacker, goes by Winston Smith from federaljack.com. He just likes Federal Jack, so that's his handle. His handle today. But I don't want to imply he did something wrong. We authorized him to run attacks against our sites to show us all the problems and vulnerabilities, and it's just amazing. And I know some people that know him, and he's really a security consultant, but you could call him a hacker, a white hat hacker, and he concurs with my analysis. And the government is out there openly recruiting on the hacker sites to try to attack patriot groups and organizations, and obviously yours truly. And they've now, for the next 20 minutes or so, we are joined by Winston Smith, and he works some with federaljack.com. I'd call it kind of a spin-off, but just as effective and great as We Are Change. Do a lot of great, confronting Al Gore, George W. Bush, other globalists, just amazing patriots, exposing the global warming fraud, you name it. And he joins us because he concurs with my analysis, and he's seeing it now in the hacker community. And this guy's good, folks. He's very good. He's really a security consultant, a.k.a. white hat hacker. And so, Winston Smith, it's good to have you here. Tell folks your intel on what they're planning and how they're using all of this hacking to try to pass their internet kill switch.
Well, thanks for having me on. Well, basically, the group Anonymous itself, it's not a government operation. It's not run by the government. It's just basically citizens on the internet. There's not really controlled or run by anyone, but because it's so decentralized like that, anyone can jump on and make suggestions and basically fan the flames in whatever direction they want. So there are definitely operatives within the anonymous community, and they're definitely on there fanning the flames to promote infrastructure attacks and denial of service attacks on financial systems and other systems that end up affecting average people that the powers that be, they're not really too concerned about. They'll lose service for a bit, but then they'll come right back on once everyone gets tired. And
this is the false flag on the web that I've been predicting.
Yeah, yes. The reason they're doing that is they want to implement the government IDS sensors in front of things that they deem critical infrastructure. Google's already deployed an Einstein surveillance system, and the Einstein IDS was developed by the NSA, and they're really pushing that to have that put in front of private business networks that are deemed critical infrastructure. So,
and that's the whole Homeland Security takeover with InfraGard, clergy response. Basically, everything is critical infrastructure. That's in the Homeland Security Cybersecurity Act, where any ISP that has over 100 customers has to be government approved and have government snoop hubs in it. So it is literally Internet 2 going out and making companies pay for Internet 2 to be put in. That's a parallel web to start absorbing the old Internet and tracking everyone. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, and they're selling it that it's going to protect you from hackers, that the sensors will be able to look for malicious traffic and look for attacks and be able to block them at the source and report it. But in reality, it's going to be able to do much more than that. It's going to be able to have a deep packet inspection where it's going to be able to pretty much examine all the contents of what's coming over the wire. And they're going to be looking for dissident communications, because that's the nature of government. That's what they do. They're not really interested in protecting anything.
Absolutely, that's admitted. I saw 2 years ago, Kurt Nimmo wrote an article with bizarre statements by Cyber Command that's already fully operating. They're just trying to get legislative authority now to do it in the open. And they said that they were already attacking themselves and, quote, attacking enemies of their agenda, which Cass Sunstein and others admit is people like yours truly, or anyone who disagrees with man-made global warming. Where do you see this going? And do you agree with my analysis that Assange is a patsy? They're trying to use him to make this Cass Sunstein-connected, George Soros-connected movement look legitimate, and that they're basically persecuting him to give an overall cover story to their larger takeover.
From what I know about Assange, he seems legit, and it seems like because they're going after him so hard in so many different ways. I do believe he's a legitimate researcher. He's he's from the old school hacker ethos from back in the 90s and late 80s from Australia. He's definitely, he seems to have the right hacker ethos, and the way they're attacking him just kind of lends credibility to what he's doing. And but the way that mainstream media is seizing on a lot of the document dumps and just reporting on stuff that's promoting their agenda, such as invading Iran and stuff like that, I think that since there's 250,000 cables, they're just digging through and cherry picking what's going to benefit them in order to do damage control. But from what I can tell, Assange does seem to be legit.
You know, there's a lot of questions I could raise here or bring up to you, but clearly the good news is when you're looking at all the big hacker sites and forums, to paraphrase what you said, or correct me if I'm wrong, 99% of the time nobody is biting on joining with these provocateurs to go after alternative media, patriot groups, but also key infrastructure and individuals to create a pushback and a really corporate and grassroots support for do something about these hackers, you know, put a muzzle on the internet.
Right. The attacks on anything beyond really attacks on the financial sector aren't really gaining much steam. They just kind of seem to be puttering out, because the way it works is a post will be made or suggestion will be made, and if the group of people who are monitoring at the time and are participating at the time don't get behind it, the idea just flutters out. So you'll see destructive things being suggested every now and then, but they'll thankfully they're so far just petering out. And when they do take place, like attacks on the financial industry, they're arresting kids and low hanging fruit. The anonymous groups, they're using something called the low orbit ion cannon, the LOIC, and it's basically an opt-in botnet where you just run it from your computer and it'll start opening connections on a website, and they'll get a few thousand people to do this, and it'll take the website down. But the program by default doesn't offer any proxying support, so it traces directly back to your computer, and they're arresting 16 and 17-year-old kids. I think they just arrested a 19-year-old kid who was running the software, pinning them.
Yeah, we've seen operatives. We've seen operatives openly on YouTube recruiting people to run these attacks on InfoWars and Prison Planet, and we've tracked it back and are pretty sure that it's Homeland Security doing it, posing as hackers. And it's just ongoing. So that's important for people to know that they're just busting a few kids and not going after, the really malicious stuff, which in every case we've looked at is a staged event.
And there's some other campaigns that different anonymous groups are doing, and they actually seem to be they're actually productive. They're encouraging people to read the WikiLeaks documents and actually. Oh, sorry, that's the music going? I can't hear that. Yeah,
stay there, because exactly, that's the big news coming up. You say there's about to be some real WikiLeaking going on, and instead of just cherry-picking, really getting into those documents and getting stuff out there like DynCorp running little kids. We'll be right back. Winston Smith, White Hat Hacker, is our guest, and I'm going to keep him about 5 minutes in the next segment, then get Lindsey Williams on. You've got a lot to say. You say the real people involved with Anonymous are doing some really exciting things, and that there's a lot more to come. You've got the floor.
Movement from some factions of Anonymous that are encouraging people to actually read the WikiLeaks documents and look for stuff that's not being discussed in any media. Like with the latest thing with the DynCorp sex scandal where they're selling boys to Afghan police forces. That came out in a Houston Chronicle blog. So basically, they're encouraging people to go start combing through the cables. There's 250,000 of them. There's going to be plenty that mainstream media is not touching. And then put up a YouTube video, put up a free blog page, write 1 or 2 paragraphs about it, and then start spamming it around. And then that way the information will go viral, because the New World Order doesn't really fear 16-year-olds doing denial of service attacks, but they do fear the information from those cable leaks getting out. And I also want to put out a call for programmers to, I guess, contact either federaljack.com or infowars.com directly. And we basically we need to put together an opt-in botnet that's similar to the LOIC, but that is not that's not destructive. So instead of doing denial of service attacks, it can do things like do Google searches, or upvote YouTube videos and upvote dig articles. And in that way, when important information comes out, everyone can dedicate their resources to making the information as viral as possible. And with the success of the Google bomb campaigns that have been going on right now, if it could be automated with some kind of client software, I think that would have a real big impact. And so basically, we need to find programmers who can help do that.
Well, expanding on that, the globalists are masters of creating the type of fake revolution they want, because they can look at a trend societally of what they're doing and know that people are going to resist it. So ahead of time, they will go out and frame the debate. So they're always promoting hacking that's just denial of service or things that are destructive to demonize people being activists with technology, so that being an activist with technology is seen as inherently dirty. You go back to the 1940s and 50s with the British. This has been declassified, but they use a similar model today in Kenya. And the government wanted to crack down and take over society, and so they went and financed rebel groups and then used those groups as the foggy, scary enemy to take over and steal people's property and enslave people. And it's the same thing. They're there setting up Assange, burning him. He's being used to then get everybody angry and then get folks to go out and vandalize the web as a pretext to come control it. And I know I've already said that several times, but that's a different way of saying it. This is really important. And it's just like the feds got caught in the early 90s going out and creating militia groups, making them violent, to demonize real militia groups. This is how they do it. Any comments on that?
Yes, that's exactly what they're doing. And coming up soon is a United Nations meeting on internet security around the world. So it's real convenient that that's being scheduled right after all of this. And
notice right now, Winston, they are trying to pass the cybersecurity. They've got these new bills where you could be given life in prison or executed if you put anything classified out. The government's classifying everything now. This is how you disappear to prison in the new Nazi Germany, is they say national security. It was the same thing in Nazi Germany or Soviet Russia. Now in England, they're saying we may ban all protest. That's martial law. I mean, notice right as the economic implosion happens, they're announcing all of this just as we warned people, because we've read the Rand Corporation documents. We know what their next move is.
And talking on that bill that's in Congress, not only is they're making it illegal to publish any classified information, basically they want to make it illegal to revealing the source documents of anything that they deem as national security, and they're naming an informant, even if that informant's name is publicly known, has been reported in the media. If you utter that person's name, you can be charged with a felony, and it's crazy.
And folks, I've read sections of the bill. This is really happening, and they had all this stuff already written. They've already proposed it before and failed, and this is the new tyranny. Oh, you don't go to a camp because you're Jewish or because you're a Seventh-day Adventist. You go to a camp because you released the MIAC or Homeland Security report. You can see where this is going. And as usual, they've got mindless, fake conservatives leading the charge to execute Julian Assange. What a barrel of idiots. I got a few final questions for you. Our white hat hacker security expert, Winston Smith, joins us. We'll be right back. I was talking to a real estate broker who's a friend of mine last night, and she's a listener of the show, but I guess it never clicked. She was watching nightly news, and they were announcing that your credit report, everything you're doing in business, your online activity is all being now sent to the government starting next year. That's already been the case for a long time. But in live time, they announced 3 weeks ago in Wired Magazine, the government admits, we're watching all your credit card purchases, your loyalty cards. They're just getting rid of any denial. They're just coming right out and saying there's no pretense of privacy. And these are felonies they're committing. I mean, just 5 years ago, people would go to jail for this in government. Now they just say, look, we're doing it. And then we get their internal documents, And it's all about us and stealing from us. Nothing to do with the men in turbans, who, by the way, on record have been caught working for them or who are provocateured by them over and over again. Lindsey Williams is coming up here in a few minutes, but I wanted our white hat hacker, again, we'll just call him Winston Smith from federaljack.com. Winston, any other tidbits you want to add? And then some of the guys in there, Matt Ryan and others, they wanted to talk about the fact that, Microsoft routinely goes to hacker conferences and gives the source code out to new Windows versions and says, try to break it if you can. And that the government has, and Google and others, which is basically the government, really tries to recruit all the hackers they can to then work for them, I guess, on the dark side. What percentage of hackers out there are awake now to this whole New World Order system? Your comments on the general points I just made.
The government and military industrial complex contractors are definitely at hacker conferences recruiting. You can find at any one of these major conferences, you can find Booz Allen Hamilton, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon. They're all out there looking for people. NSA gives away scholarships at another one I know of. A lot of hackers are aware of what's going on, but they're still kind of getting the jobs doing this stuff because they're very lucrative paying jobs, and so they're whether or not they're keeping their original ethics when they're taking these jobs, I don't know, but a lot of hackers are aware of what's going on, but they're also getting jobs within the system so that they can basically live. And that might be a good thing. That might be a bad thing. It's pretty much from when people I talk to when I'm out there. A lot of people know what's going on and they're in agreement. But they'll still work at they'll still work for the government or for a defense contractor.
Well, it's clearly that old double-edged sword of it's good because as long as the hackers are into liberty and freedom, it's great to have them inside the system. The problem is that system is so corrupt and murderous that many times they go ahead and just set people up, even if you haven't betrayed the system, just because they want to have a conviction on you. So it's very destructive, and overall we need people that have knowledge of all these systems to be out there exposing the globalist as much as they can. But it is creepy to have you and many others confirm to us and send us the data that the government is out there trying to move against what we're doing, the alternative media. And then the great thing for the globalist is they can engage in these activities and then blame it on the rest of the hacker community.
And a lot of the hackers that they're using for that are criminal informants. Like with the TJX breach, the main hacker that was behind that was a Secret Service informant getting paid $80,000 a year, and at the same time he was the same guy who's doing all these big credit card breaches, stealing millions of credit card numbers, and then they use that as an excuse to start clamping down on basically internet freedoms and monitoring financial transactions, looking for fraud because your credit card was probably compromised by this guy, but he was working for the Secret Service at the same time, getting paid $80,000 a year, and then that was in Wired magazine.
So once you work for the government, it's also just a license to engage in criminal activity.
That seems to be the trend. They burned him pretty bad though for when they caught him. He got sentenced to 25 years for credit card theft, which is unheard of. It's, if you kill someone, you can get 10 years, but if you steal their credit card, you get 25.
Well, that could bring down the entire system, all of this fraud that's going on. And so many times it's come out that the big banks are actually releasing this themselves and then using it as a pretext to try to bring in even more control because they can then put regulations in that are so strong, only mega banks will be able to comply with all of it. Winston Smith, good talking to you, and appreciate all of your help, and continue the great work there at Federal Jack, and We Are Change, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Now,